Yeah, 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 yeah. Yo, welcome back to another edition of the Men Who Cry podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe, review, tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend. If you're not doing these things, I have to assume that you are as good at multitasking as Stephen A. Smith. On today's episode, we are coming to you we are talking right after Game 5 of the NBA Finals between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Indiana Pacers. We have the Oklahoma City Thunder winning and being one win away from their technically first, depending on how you look at it, second NBA championship in franchise history, and putting the Indiana Pacers on the brink of elimination. This is the first time Mike Breen just said on the telecast, which it's crazy to think that this has happened this whole time, but the Pacers have never trailed in these playoffs. They have been up at least one game in every game, in every series of this postseason. So this is the first time that they have not only lost that privilege of being up in every series, but the fact that they've lost back-to-back games for the first time. This game was really good. Clearly, it looks like Tyrese Halliburton, who didn't make a field goal, was 0-6 in the game, was clearly laboring at points with his leg. And if he's not ready to go, this offense just isn't the same. I think the one thing that I've seen, and people probably say more of, is that they're going to need like Pascal Siakam to score more or get more involved. I don't necessarily think that's how the Pacers offense works. It really is kind of like Halliburton or even T.J. McCollum, who had a great game today, has to be the guy stirring the drink. They're not necessarily a team that's going to have one guy take but so many shots in the game. And it's something that they have to kind of get the chain moving every single time to get the flow of their offense going. That's what makes the Indiana Pacers unstoppable. It's the fact that everyone on the court, like we say so many times, can dribble, pass, and shoot and make decisions with the ball. And while they can do that, they're not isolation players. It is not, Nimhard is just not going to go one-on-one time after time after time after time again. Nesmith, that's not necessarily his game. Halliburton, that's not even his game as well. It is very much a collection of players. I do not think this series is over by any stretch of the imagination. I really do think Indiana can win Game 6. But if Halliburton is going to be this version of himself, then it's not going to happen. And again, these are just the games that he'll have. His bad games are really, really, really quiet. He's out there shooting tour dates if it doesn't happen. I mean, he didn't make a shot in the whole game. And mind you, he's had several games in his career where he didn't make one basket. So this will be a interesting next game to see who's able to win that one, to see if we get a Game 7. So now we're only down to 2 or 1 basketball game left for the rest of the NBA season, for the 2024-2025 NBA season. And this series has been awesome. It's been so good. I thought Chet at times in this game was just taking over, being the kind of guy he is. That's the reason why I don't want to get into the dynasty talk yet, because I feel like you got to win the first before you can even really get to that point. I would argue win a second before that conversation can start. But the reason why I think people have forecasted this team winning so many championships is not just the contracts, which are important. It's not just because Sam Presti's a great general manager. It's the fact that their three best players complement each other so much. It was different anytime you had those free agent big threes, whether it was the big three in Brooklyn, in Phoenix, in Boston, in Miami, Cleveland, Golden State. There's a big four, kind of vastly between the two. I would say Golden State was probably the only one to me that matches like this, in the sense that their three best players all complement the other so well, right? Chet doesn't have to go out there and he doesn't need 20 shots a game, right? He's a guy that if he's just out there to defend, and he's out there to make plays with the ball, and he's out there to actually be a defensive stopper, he's someone that is going to just have an impact in the game, right? You don't need to run a whole bunch of plays for him. He's just a guy that has to be out there to be making the defensive plays and getting everything that the other guys aren't getting. You just saw today, Jalen Williams went for 40 points. There aren't too many guys that have gone for 40 points in an NBA playoff game. Off the top of my head, I can't even remember the last person who went for 40 in a playoff game. But he's a guy who can just kind of do it all for you at such an elite level. You know, he can go out there and get you buckets. He can be an excellent defender. Anytime he's in transition, it's just a nightmare to try and stop that guy. Him and Siakam, I think, are the two best transition players in the league outside of Ja Morant, honestly. Just an incredible athlete. And then Shea's, you know, one of the 3 to 4 best players in the NBA. So, yeah, I actually do think it very much depends on how Halliburton is feeling. How much treatment does he get? How much he's able to stay, healthy. But I think that this is going 7, but I still have OKC winning this series. Speaking of this series, the thing I also wanted to talk about was the thing that kind of everyone was talking about from Game 4. If you did not watch Game 4, I don't know why you're listening to this pod, but basically Game 4, it finally showcased what I personally think ESPN has become, as more specifically Stephen A. Smith has become, as a network that while they have sports, they're not into talking about sports. They're into talking about rage and to get you upset that they're talking about your favorite player and get you more and more mad, right? So there was a X tweet or whatever, or a picture came out. Stephen A. Smith playing solitaire while the NBA Finals game was going on, right? And of course, Stephen A. saw it. He took the picture and basically tried to 8 Mile himself. And then, but key mistake was he tried to say that it was during a timeout, right? But then they basically showed him at 4K. There was actually a video, it wasn't a picture, a video of him playing solitaire while the game was going on. You could see the game was still happening, and then it zoomed in on him just playing solitaire. This is kind of how I've had this conversation on this pod a couple times, and we'll do it till we're blue in the face, right? This man is stretched too thin. Okay, this guy is making $100 million. He has the #1 show on the network. He has to do 2 hours of that show. He has to do pre and post game in 2 different locations. He's also just going to New York every single time because the First Take Studios in New York. It is not a sustainable. This isn't sustainable for someone to keep doing and to keep having the clout that he has unless he's just rage baiting. The biggest problem in NBA media is nothing to do with the actual game. This series has been incredible. This is everything that you would want in it if you like basketball, right? For all the old heads, they shoot too many threes. These teams ain't shooting that many threes. Okay, this is not just we get into the paint, we kick out, and we shoot threes, right? Even the Indiana Pacers are not a team that does that all the single time. It's not a fucking flop fest, right? There's been less foul call. This has been way more physical of a postseason, if not the finals, than we've seen in a long time. I mean, outside of the one call that Shea got where I don't believe it was a foul, but we've gotten one call pretty much, or even one game that I would say that the officiating was subpar. And that was, of course, led by, the GOAT, Scott Foster, the hashtag the extender. And it was just the amount of things that you can pick up on from this whole series, to me, is the ethos of basketball and how great it's been. And the fact that the #1 guy for the whole entire show, the $100 million man, is so preoccupied or so bored that he doesn't even want to watch the game that he is even at to play solitaire on his phone is fucking embarrassing. It's embarrassing. He should be embarrassed. ESPN should be embarrassed. It is just something that at some point there's going to be a rude awakening for what fans are really going for. Because you're always going to have fans that are rage bait. They love that stuff, right? That's kind of where they're at. I think most fans are just sick and tired of the constant, nonsense that's being talked about. They had a segment before Game 4 was it game 4 or game 5? It was one of the NBA Finals games, where they started talking about Luka Doncic and the Lakers. It's like they haven't played in months. They played since April. Why are we talking about them? The draft isn't coming up. They don't have a lottery pick. So their inability to talk about the game, it shows more and more as these playoffs have gone along. And it's just a very embarrassing and sad situation that we are seeing. Last thing that we're going to do, a little bit of behind the scenes. We were going to have Nick, the producer at large, on this pod to talk a little bit about a very wild weekend in baseball. But I'm going to save some of the Rafael Devers talk and the Yankees talk until we get to speak to him and get his little point of view on it. No, I actually want to talk about what's happening with the Dodgers. It's not happening with Shohei Ohtani, but their national anthem singer. I want to get her name correct. Now, I might say this wrong on here, so if I hear that her name is not how it's phonetically pronounced here, someone just write in the comments on either TikTok, IG, wherever this gets posted, and let me know if I said this wrong. Niez. It's Nezza. She's a Latin artist. She did the national anthem for the LA Dodgers this weekend. But the thing was, and there's videos online that if you want to go and see it, the Dodgers asked her not to say it in Spanish, right? And she did it anyway, right? Sang the national anthem in Spanish. And this is a miss. The reason why this is more of a hot topic is twofold. One, it's discrimination to tell someone that they can't sing the national anthem in a certain language, especially in that community in Los Angeles, southern LA. And this is all happening amidst what was 2 separate protests taking place. You had the No Kings protest that took place over the weekend. And then earlier last week and last weekend were the ICE raid / protests that were taking place as well. The No Kings protest took place all over the country, while as the ICE raids were mostly targeted in Los Angeles. And that's where a lot of the tension was. And the reason why the baseball conversation of it, and the reason why this specific conversation is so impactful, is there have been reports now that Dodgers are kicking out fans with no ice signs, that they're removing them from the stadium. And baseball's in a very interesting place. Baseball is our oldest sport, obviously, as we all know that. But ironically, while baseball is the most American sport and is honestly a melting pot of what's happening right now, the amount of Spanish-speaking players that are just in the major leagues from various countries, Venezuela, Cuba, Mexico, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, the list goes on and on and on. Baseball is the number 1 sport for immigration. Okay, I would attest, maybe hockey has them beat, that in the 4 major sports, they have the most international players in the sport, just because there's so many players for them to beat. Maybe not percentage-wise they have them beat, but they definitely seem to have them beat in terms of a amount of people that they have. Also, sorry, I was just looking up, seeing SportsCenter had it. So Jalen Williams is the 3rd youngest player to have 40 points game in the NBA Finals. He was just a little bit older than Russell Westbrook in 2012 against the Miami Heat. But going back, yeah. And the fact that baseball has this such tie to immigration is so fascinating, that they're now going to be the sport of the summer when there's just going to be more protests, right? Protests happen in large part from good weather. That's a large part of why protests happen. People are outside more. People are willing to be outside more. People are willing to have their voices heard. And the fact that the Dodgers told a Spanish artist to not sing in her native tongue for that type of community more or less kind of tells you where, you know, these teams are before. I remember it was interesting, not to bring up the Knicks, but this is just happens to be a Knicks part of the Knicks story. I remember when the George Floyd protests were taking place. It was 5 years ago. Remember when they cared about black people? Anyway, those protests were taking place. And a lot of teams were putting out statements saying, you know, either Black Lives Matter or some version of, you know, whatever, peace. And I remember that the two teams in the NBA that didn't release statements at all until later, when you can argue, I guess, got bullied into it, were the San Antonio Spurs and the New York Knicks. I'll let you guess which one got more covers than the other. But the point was that Pablo Torre, who's doing a lot of good journalistic work now, had a story about them and basically saying that certain people in the organization, who those people were kind of upset that there was not a statement released. And I remember that Mina Kimes and Paulo were doing a podcast, and they were talking about the Knicks specifically, and their point was, or Mina's point specifically was, most corporations just want to play it down the middle, right? A majority of times, corporations are never really, I would say, progressive or conservative. If you want to argue, they lean conservative. But their point is that they're not really into making waves, right? And her point was that the middle, right, at that time, had been moved to a point, right, where it is now not status quo for you not to speak about these issues, right, whatever it may be. So you have to be able to say something, right? And I think that was a very good point in the sense of where we were as a country back in 2020. Now in 2025, that middle is all over the place now. I don't think anyone really knows what the middle is. I think it's going to be more based on your constituency. And the fact that LA made that decision, or at least tried to make that decision, to kind of try to eradicate the people in this country is kind of sucker shit, and it has to really need to end at this moment. And I think the thing that I always found funny is a lot of times you would see a certain group of people would always want to have politics and sports separated, right? And we've gone over this before on this pod. There's never been a point in this history of this country where sports and politics were separated. Never. We can go back to Jesse Owens if you want to talk about that. You know, Jackie Robinson, Hank Aaron. Like, sports have always been political. Politics have always been sports. These two things have always intertwined. And the fact that we have now seen someone like, I can't even believe someone like Alexi Lalas has basically went on the record and say that we need to stop having diversity in our sports, especially on the soccer team. Again, just a flattened dog whistle, because we know where he stands when it comes to these things. He doesn't like brown people. And this is just going to get more and more and more and more in your face. And it's very telling to see who are the people who are going to stand on which side of the aisle, right? Because this thing's moving very fast. And I'm very interested to see what's going to be the rest of the fallout from the Dodgers, per se. It seems that the way they try to cover this up is by having Shohei Ohtani pitch for the first time. He didn't pitch terribly. He had 2 hits. He only did 1 inning. So it's very strange that you pitched a guy 1 inning, but neither here nor there. So we'll talk about this story a little bit more also when Nick comes on, but had to just give my first initial thoughts of it. All right. Thank you guys again for listening to the Men Who Cry podcast. Like I said, like, subscribe, review. I'll be back with you guys later this week. Talk more about what's happening in sports. Peace.